We're using that 8x10 panel canvas, primary colors plus black and white, and I've already been doing a little bit of painting today, so I already have some colors mixed up, but I will show you how to mix everything. You might want to have like a medium to small round brush, a large flat kind of brush, like a large square or flat brush, something around 1 inch or so, and then maybe a medium size round or filbert. I like using a medium, like a filbert size, like this kind of size. It's about the size of my like pointer finger or something like that. So with that said, let's go ahead and start painting. I like starting with that large square flat brush. This is going to be what we're going to do our background with. And today we're going to do a super turquoisey background. This is going to be so much fun. We're having Hawaii vibes. We just had a little luau for my daughter's school. And I'm going to be doing blue with a little bit of yellow and a lot of white for a turquoise. Light turquoise though. I want it to be very light. So I'm using a lot of white. A lot of white. Mostly white. So it's just like so much white. And then just a little bit of blue, tiny bit of yellow. And then we're going to go about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom and just make a line like going across horizontal. So below this, we're going to paint a different shade. This up here is a little lighter. So I'm going to paint some just streaks in the sky. Notice I'm not coloring it in all the way. And you're going to see why in just a minute. So once I have that covered in, those little streaks, I'm going to fill in with more white. So I'm just getting white on the brush. And I can even scrub in a circle to create the look of maybe like some clouds. So it's very easy to do this if you're not overanalyzing it. Just little streaks. So you should see this kind of smushy brush stroke here, creating. And you don't have to do it circular. You could just plug in with horizontal strokes to make some parts look lighter and some parts look darker. But you could also scrub to create that more fluffy cloud look. So some parts it's super important that you just make sure some parts look lighter and some parts look darker, and then you can kind of put your personality on however you want that to be expressed. So see how I have some lighter, some darker. You just don't want one shade, or you could. It's not like wrong. Sometimes I don't like saying things like that. That's not what I'm doing, is what I should say. So if you want it to look more like what I'm doing, or you want to practice this idea, then use more white in some spots. And then at the bottom, we want it to look a little darker. So we're just going to add a little more blue to our mix and more white, or sorry, more yellow and less white. So it's just more of a darker turquoise. You have blue with a little bit of yellow and then just a small amount of white instead of a lot of white. And then that's what we're going to do at the bottom. But still, I want to make sure I have some parts that look a little lighter, even down here. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush and make sure that to sweep in a little bit of that. Just going horizontally though for the bottom to make it look like an ocean background. Like water. Maybe there's some like waves over there. We don't know. Let's see how I can get like different shades. And I'm not going to paint all the way to the left. No, you can even wipe some of the excess paint off here on the left side. So it's not too thick. We're going to be painting our hibiscus like more than halfway across. So if your paint is really wet, notice I'm just kind of rubbing it out so it's like too thinner over here and we have not too much paint on the left. You can even hit it with a blow dryer, which is what I'm going to do so that we make sure it's super dry before we start layering. So the next thing I'm going to do is place the flower And I'm going to use my Filbert to do that. So make sure you have your Filbert nice and clean and dry or just ready to go. And I'm going to just paint the shape. And don't worry about it looking, you know, realistic or anything like that yet. We're going to do a pretty reddish shaded one. So I'm going to start with mostly red and a touch of white. The white is just there to help make the paint more opaque. It will make it look pink at first, but we will layer to make it look darker. So don't worry about that. Now this is going to go more than halfway across. It's going to be in this space right here. So I'm going to make sure to go about halfway in my water. So if you go to the top and bottom of your water, you want to be right in the middle. And then I want to make sure that I'm at least a third of the way over from the left. So it's going to be right about here. But you can change that if you need to. And then I'm going to build my leaves out from there. So the first leaf is going to go up into the sky. And I want you to think of a pizza slice or a V coming out. So notice how I'm going from that and making like a V. And then at the top, I'm going to pull and sort of wiggle like that to make my petal. So notice how it's not straight, it's like wiggled. And then I can do another. Same thing, kind of pull and wiggle and pull it back into the center. And it's the same kind of shape. They don't all need to be the same size. In fact, they just won't be. It's not really possible in painting to make everything exact, and it's not the way it is in nature. So we don't want to do that anyways, because it wouldn't look right. And then it's going to come back in. We'll do another big one down here. This one's going to kind of go all the way to the bottom of the canvas. And same thing with our last one here. It's going to come down, just wiggle. And then all this stuff goes off the canvas down here. So what you can do is just color these in with that same shade or something similar. Doesn't have to be the exact same shade. If you're mixing more paint, that's okay. You just want to get a decent layer. So now we have our first layer. Notice how you can see the background behind it a little bit. Don't worry about that. We'll change it. I'm going to clean the filbert. We're going to add some palm tree trunks with brown. To create brown, I'm going to use red, yellow, and black. So I'm going to get my red with black and yellow. And then notice how it becomes brown. If it looks kind of greenish, you have too much yellow. If it looks kind of like too red, you need to add more yellow. And if it looks too dark, add more red and yellow. If it looks too light, add a little more black. So you can always adjust it. I want it to be relatively dark though. And what I'm going to do is go on the right side here, I'm using that filbert still. And I'm just going to use the full width of the brush or whatever. You know, you want to make it a little bit thick, and it's going to just wiggle and pull from the bottom all the way to the top. And I want it to get a little thinner at the top. And then I'm going to do like right out of the tip of this top petal, I'm going to do another little smaller one. Just barely going up like that. And then I'm going to do another one coming on the left side, coming out of the top of the flower again. Maybe this one's a little bit bigger. Maybe it comes down on this side. And then you can have some maybe like little, almost like brown stem type shapes here or things. So I can have like little brown lines coming up. One, maybe one right here, super, super small. And one right here, small as well. Maybe another one like this. So we want to have like some little lines playing around. And then to begin our shading process on our palm tree, the palm trees, you can use a smaller brush. So that could be like a small, I'm going to use a small shader. This is just like a flat type brush, square topped, small sized brush. And I'm just using more black in my brown. So if you add more black to your brown, and I want my shading to be on the right side on this right palm trunk. So I'm just going to the right side and adding some black only on the right side. And then on the ones on the left, I'm going to do my highlighting on the left side. Or my shading, I should say, sorry. So I'll put the black on the left side of these ones. And you can do some on these little stems too, on the same sides. You don't have to do them on these, but you can. I'll just make them look a little darker, stand out a little more. And then you can take some of that brown, just maybe more of the medium brown, and go to this one that's we didn't put up all the way and do some little circle type shapes in the middle. Maybe those are like coconuts. And then we're going to pull some little lines coming out, one to the right like that, one that goes kind of up, one that goes to the left, and then two that kind of come down. Maybe I'll do like one little one coming down like that. You can add more if you want. And then I'm cleaning that brush. And make sure you dry it every time you clean it. And then let's do some more green. So I'm going to do mostly yellow, a little bit of blue, and this is going to give me more of a medium green color. And then what I'm going to do here is put some leaf shapes, which are just like, think of a surfboard shape. And you can just put some green color down here in general. So maybe I have some coming out of the right. Maybe I have some over here right next to the flower. So see how I'm just adding some green color over here? Just very abstractly filling in the space on the left side of the hibiscus. And then maybe I have some like coming off these little branch things. And then you want to have some coming off your bronze. So you're going to do just little tiny pulls coming off of those little brown shapes that we put in there. So just pull little brush strokes. These can be so abstract. It can be thin or thick. It doesn't really matter because we're making something look kind of far away and blurry, and just express yourself. Let it be your own style. The main thing you want to keep in mind is that your brush strokes should be a little thicker and fuller at the base, and then as you go to the tip, they get smaller and pointier so that you create that thicker to thinner triangulation on your palm fronds. You want to put more leaves on this one. So now that we have like our colors placed, we have some shading a little bit, we're going to add some more detail to the flower here. And I want you to use that Filbert still, because it's a good size and shape for doing the flower petals. And this time we're going to want to get a little thicker with our paint and a little bit more, just like maybe a little bit of an orange undertone. So I'm going to have the red with just a touch of yellow. And this time I don't want any white. And I'm going to go in and add a second coat. You can leave some of your first coat showing a little bit if you want. But I'm pretty much covering it. And notice I'm pulling from the center out so that I don't forget where the center of my shape is here, my flower. That looks fun. No, we're gonna do so many layers on that. With that same color though, maybe something similar. I just like to clean my brush because it helps me reshape my brush. I'm gonna put some little buds here. So maybe I just have like a couple little marks on the tip of some of these little branches where that's like gonna be a flower, or maybe it's like partially closed or whatever. So you can just make it a little more abstract. Doesn't have to be like a full blossom flower. And then while you have that on your brush, you can do some like highlights. So if I take a little bit more white in there, maybe a little more yellow, it's going to create just a different, slightly lighter shade. We can go in and add some brush strokes just in those shapes. Then I'm going to add a little bit of this on those little ones. A little bit of that same color. And now it's just so much richer. It's so fun. And then what we can do is use go back to that shader, the smaller brush. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then we can layer some darker colors. So I want to use some purple, which is just your blue and red. And then I'm going to go right in the middle of the flower and just make a smiley face, but make it thick. So it should be like kind of a curved upward splotch. And then from there, you can pull a little bit, maybe out into the color, just a little bit. But we really want it dark right in the middle there. I'm not going too crazy. And then you'll use a little bit of that shading at the base of those little ones. So just take a little bit with the corner and flick it from the base up into the petals just a tiny bit. Not too much. You can also use this as a shadow color for the green. So you can put a little bit of that into your green. Just go into the green area. pull in some little brush strokes of that dark purple on the maybe underside or just in the green a little bit. It's going to show up as a really dark color and in my palm fronds too. So I'm just going to do some little brush strokes in the green. Not too many. Purple is one of my favorite shadow colors to use. Like, I don't know, I just gravitate towards using purple straight up. I think it just looks good. And then for the next part, I recommend getting a little bit of a thicker flat brush if you have one, or just whatever you're using as a flat brush will be fine. You can even use like an angle shader like this or something, whatever works for you. I'm just going to use this one because I have it here. And then I want to use that purple with a little bit of white. So see how I put some white on the purple that I was using, so make it a little lighter, maybe a little more red into it so it's not too cool. And then I'm going to put a highlight on the left side of my palm tree on the right. So I'm going to pull, this time I'm going to pull from the right and sweep, or pull from the left and sweep over to the right with that shader and just make little pulls. Maybe add a little more white. And I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. But doing this horizontal brush stroke allows for it to have that kind of palm tree like texture. Not exactly, but in an abstract kind of way. You're emulating that a little bit. So now you should see some different tones on there. Like you should see at least 3 shades. One, the medium, like your base coat of brown. Then you have that dark black on the right. And then you have this purplish, light purple highlighting on the left over everything. And then I want to do this on my other ones too. So on the ones on the leg, this side here, I'll do my highlight going the other way. So I'm going to come on the right side and pull to the left. You're just taking the brush to wherever you want to do it right here, and you're pulling, like I'm just pulling little brush strokes like this. Grab the edge of the brush, really lightly dust it over, and I'm not going all the way. So, yeah, that's so simple. It's not a big deal. Sometimes people, I think you see it and then you want to like think about it, but just try it out and see what happens. You can even take some of that purple on those little coconuts and put some highlights on that. Highlight this little thing, these little brown branches that we put the leaves and flowers on. And then we'll come with a small round brush. And let's do some more highlighting on the green parts. So I want to do some green, but I'm going to add a lot of white to it. So the same color we started with that we made the green with, let's just add white to it to make our highlight for it. And then what I'm going to do is go on the green and just add some of that light green, little lines to it. And again, this can be so abstract. We just want to get the color in there and layer over what's there. So see, I'm just going little lines. Go to the top of the shapes. Or just on the opposite side of wherever you put your darker color. We want to do it on the tree too. And then when you're done with that, clean the brush. We'll do some more highlighting to the hibiscus. And keep running out of red because this hibiscus uses a lot of paint. And I'm going to go ahead and make, clean your brush all the way before you do this and make a lighter shade of pink. So we're just doing more of a pink color. I'm not adding the yellow this time. And then what I want to do is go to the edges of the petals and just lightly kind of dust the brush. Stab it. And you can always do this more realistically. I invite you to be as playful as you can. And then you can make little lines that go in between the petals. So it's almost like you're re-outlining the petals a little bit. But we also just want to add some texture. So a lot of times this will come from, the lighter colors will come from the tips of the leaves, like a little bit brighter at the tips. I just want to add like more texture to it. And then you can do that on these little guys too, towards the top or just whatever. Maybe you add some more of that, maybe even like an orangey kind of color. So red and yellow, maybe more yellow even. And a little bit of white, more of an orange, light orange, medium orange. You can pull some of that in. Maybe you can pull that on the little ones if you have some space. And then when you get enough, just let it go. And you can create some more dark colors too. So if I have red, just a teeny bit of blue. More red. You're going to get a darker color, but it will still be more reddish because you're not using that much blue. The more blue you use, the more it's going to start to get purple. But if you use just a touch of blue, it'll be more like burgundy. So with that burgundy, you can create a shadow color that's a little more subtle than the first one we used. And you can pull from the center out a bit. And you can go in between the leaves a little bit, or petals. So it's good to have some of this too. I'm kind of like wiggling them in. I mean, just get really crazy with your expression here. And paint over some of your lighter colors if you want to see them a little darker. And then I'm going to clean the brush. And then we want to add our little like hibiscus little thing in the middle. I don't really know what we're going to call that, but we're going to do it with like a mostly white, maybe just a tiny bit of yellow and a tiny bit of red in it for a very, very light peach white. So it's pretty much white with just a little bit of red and yellow. We really want it light. And then it's going to go in the middle. We're going to go right to the, like above the dark part right here. And it's just going to pull up to the right just a bit, almost all the way to the tip of the petals, but not all the way, like reaching, but not all the way. And then you can maybe pull just a couple little lines out at the top. And then you're just going to do a bunch of dots with like white or peach around that line. Just dots. I'm just making little dots. Some can be small, some can be large, some can be medium. Try to get variety in size. And then we can highlight a little bit with that same color. Just go around the tips. And then you can even use like this kind of highlight color or maybe even a little more white mixed in to highlight the palm fronds. And if you want to pump up any of the highlights, you can, but I think I want to like let it go. I don't want to be too crazy with it. You can always add darker colors too. So if you need to make any of your colors look a little darker, like for example, maybe I want it a little darker in the middle here, you can always use a little bit of black and just dab it in.